There is a mountain at the top of the world that has been killing people for a century and has never once apologized for it. It does not discriminate. It has taken the strongest climbers ever produced by human civilization. It has taken the most experienced, the best equipped, the most determined. It has taken people on their first attempt and people on their 14th. It has taken them in perfect weather and in storms so violent that the wind alone can strip the skin from an exposed face in minutes. It has kept some of them. Their bodies remain on the mountain today, preserved in the cold, still wearing the clothing they died in, becoming landmarks that other climbers use to navigate. This is Mount Everest, and the 300 lives it has consumed are not a warning. They are a measure of what this place actually is. Most people think they know Everest. They know it is the highest mountain on Earth. They know people climb it. They have seen photographs of the summit pyramid against a blue sky and the lines of climbers moving slowly upward in bright jackets. What those photographs do not show is what happens when the weather changes, what happens in the dark. What happens when a body that has been pushed beyond its physiological limits finally reaches the point where it can no longer continue? What happens to the people who make the decisions that cost them everything? And what happens to the mountain itself, indifferent and permanent, after another season of human ambition has ended on its slopes? This is the story of that mountain, not the version that appears in expedition fundraising materials or motivational speeches. The real version. The one measured in the 300 people who went up and did not come down. To understand why Everest kills, you first have to understand what it is. Not what it looks like from a distance, but what it actually does to a human body the moment that body crosses above a certain altitude and enters a zone where the air contains so little oxygen that survival, simply staying alive without moving, becomes a physiological feat that the body can only sustain for a limited time. Mount Everest stands at 8,849 meters, 29,032 feet, above sea level. Its summit sits in what mountaineers call the death zone, the altitude above 8,000 meters, where the atmospheric pressure is so low that the air contains roughly 1/3 of the oxygen available at sea level. The human body was not designed to function in these conditions. It was not designed to function anywhere close to these conditions. At the summit of Everest, a resting human body consumes oxygen faster than the thin air can deliver it, meaning that simply existing at the summit is a process of slow suffocation that the body manages through a cascade of physiological compensations. Each one buying a little more time, each one extracting a cost that accumulates with every minute spent above 8,000 meters. The symptoms of severe altitude sickness read like a list of system failures. The brain swells as fluid accumulates in the skull, producing headaches that feel like the inside of the head is being pressurized. judgment deteriorates in ways the affected person cannot perceive, because the organ responsible for perceiving deteriorating judgment is itself deteriorating. Hallucinations appear, voices, figures, the conviction that there is a companion who does not exist. A phenomenon so common at extreme altitude that climbers have given it a name: the third man. The presence felt beside you on the mountain when you are alone. The lungs fill with fluid in a condition called high-altitude pulmonary edema that produces a bubbling sound in the chest and can kill within hours if descent does not happen immediately. The extremities stop receiving adequate blood flow as the body redirects circulation to the core organs, and frostbite begins in the fingers and toes, working inward. None of this happens quickly. It happens slowly enough that a climber in the early stages of serious altitude illness can still be moving, still making decisions, still believing that they are functioning adequately when they are not. This is what makes the death zone so specifically dangerous. The mountain does not announce itself. It simply waits while the body's systems degrade one by one, until the point where descent becomes impossible, and then it collects what is owed. The first recorded death on Everest occurred in 1922, when 7 Sherpa climbers were killed in an avalanche during a British expedition. The climbers leading the expedition survived. The men carrying their equipment did not. This pattern of Sherpa and high-altitude workers bearing a disproportionate share of the mountain's danger while receiving a fraction of the recognition for its ascents established itself in the first years of Himalayan climbing and has never been fully corrected. Today, the Sherpa people of the Khumbu Valley, whose genetic adaptation to altitude gives them physiological advantages that no amount of training can replicate in lowland climbers, continue to fix the ropes, carry the loads, establish the camps, and guide the expeditions that make commercial Everest climbing possible. And they continue to die at rates that the mountaineering world acknowledges only when the numbers become too large to ignore. The Khumbu Icefall is where many of them die. This section of glacier between base camp at 5,364 meters and Camp 1 at roughly 6,000 meters is the most objectively dangerous part of the standard southern route up Everest. The glacier here drops steeply and moves at a rate of roughly 1 meter per day. Constantly shifting, collapsing, and reforming the towers of ice called seracs that climbers must pass beneath and between on their way to the mountain above. The seracs can collapse without warning at any hour of the day or night. There is no way to predict when a particular tower will fall. There is no safe path through the ice fall, only paths that are less dangerous than other paths on any given day. The Sherpa climbers who work as high-altitude porters and guides pass through the ice fall multiple times per season, while their clients pass through it twice. Some seasons, the icefall claims no one. In April 2014, A Sarak collapse killed 16 Sherpa workers in a single event. The deadliest single accident in Everest history at the time. 13 of the 16 bodies were recovered. 3 were not. They remain in the glacier, moving slowly downhill at the speed of the ice, returning to the valley below on a time scale measured in decades. The history of Everest is full of moments that changed how the mountain was understood. The first attempt to reach the summit was made in 1924 by a British expedition that included George Mallory and Andrew Irvine, 2 climbers who disappeared into cloud near the summit on June 8th and were never seen alive again. Whether they reached the summit before they died remains one of the great unresolved questions in mountaineering history. Mallory's body was found in 1999 by a search expedition, frozen and preserved on the north face at an altitude of 8,155 meters. His snow goggles were in his pocket, suggesting he was descending in darkness or a whiteout when he fell. Irvine's body has never been found. The camera they carried, which could contain photographs of the summit taken before Hillary and Tenzing in 1953, has never been recovered. Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay reached the summit on May 29, 1953, becoming the first people confirmed to have done so. Their achievement transformed Everest from an unconquered peak into a conquered one, and in doing so, created an entirely new problem. If Everest could be climbed, then Everest would be climbed by more people, with more frequency, with increasingly less experience, until the mountain that had killed people through its difficulty began to kill people through its accessibility. The commercial era of Everest climbing began in earnest in the 1990s, when expedition companies began selling guided ascents to clients who had the money to pay for them, but not necessarily the experience to survive them. The business model was straightforward. A client paid between $40,000 and $80,000 for a guided expedition that would provide supplemental oxygen, Sherpa support, fixed ropes, established camps, and the logistical framework of a professional expedition. In return, the client would follow instructions, maintain the schedule, and be guided to the summit if conditions allowed. What the business model could not provide was the physiological resilience, the technical skill, and the decision-making experience that distinguishes a climber who survives a deteriorating situation from one who does not. The season of 1996 is where this problem announced itself to the world in a way that could not be ignored. In May of that year, 8 people died on Everest in a single storm, the highest death toll in a single event in the mountain's history at that time. Among the dead were 2 of the most experienced commercial guides on the mountain, Rob Hall of New Zealand and Scott Fisher of the United States. Both leading separate expeditions, both caught by a storm that developed faster than forecasts had predicted, and both making decisions in the hours before the storm arrived that contributed to what followed. Rob Hall reached the summit late in the afternoon of May 10th with a client named Doug Hansen, who was making his second attempt after turning back the previous year just below the summit. The time was dangerously late. The agreed turnaround time, the point at which climbers are supposed to begin descent regardless of their position to ensure they reach camp before dark or before weather deteriorates, had passed. Hall waited for Hansen to reach the summit. By the time both men began their descent, the storm had arrived. They were above 8,700 meters in darkness and wind. Hansen died during the descent. Hall was unable to continue and spent the night in the open on the south summit at approximately 8,750 meters, connected to the outside world by radio. The conversations that followed were heard by multiple people at base camp and relayed to Hall's wife Jan Arnold in New Zealand, who was pregnant with their first child. Hall spoke with her by radio from the south summit the following morning, frostbitten, unable to move, knowing that rescue at his altitude was not possible. He told her he loved her. He told her that their daughter, if it was a daughter, should have a good life. The radio connection faded. His body was found the following season in the position where he had been sitting. He had not moved from the spot where he had spoken to his wife. He is still there. Scott Fisher died the same night at a lower altitude, found the following morning by his Sherpa guide, Lop Sang Jang Bu, in a sitting position on the southeast ridge at roughly 8,200 meters. Fisher had been suffering from altitude sickness for days before the summit attempt, and had been moving slowly on the descent before the storm overtook him. His body was later moved from its original position and buried in a snow grave on the mountain. Eight people died on Everest in those 36 hours. The story reached the world through the accounts of survivors, journalists who were present on the mountain that season, and the books written afterward. John Krakauer's account, published the following year, brought the events to an audience measured in millions and transformed Everest from a place that serious climbers thought about into a place that everyone thought about. The mountain became famous not for the achievement of reaching its summit, but for the cost of attempting it, and that fame brought more people. The years after 1996 saw Everest ascents increase steadily, with record numbers reached in multiple seasons as the commercial infrastructure expanded. The permit system was refined, and the number of expedition operators grew. With more people on the mountain came new categories of risk that the mountain's early history had not produced. Traffic jams, queues of climbers moving slowly upward on fixed ropes in conditions where time spent waiting is time spent depleting the supplemental oxygen supply that keeps people alive above 8,000 meters. Photographs taken in 2019 showed a line of hundreds of climbers stretched along the southeast ridge below the summit, waiting their turn to move forward on a single fixed rope. "11 people died that season. Several of the deaths were attributed not to weather or to falls, but to exhaustion and oxygen depletion caused by the time spent waiting in the queue. The bodies on the mountain have become part of Everest's geography in a way that is unique among the world's high places. Removing a body from above 8,000 meters requires a rescue operation of enormous complexity and cost, involving multiple Sherpa climbers, equipment, and days of work in conditions where the rescue team itself faces serious risk. Most bodies are left where they fall. Some have been moved to less visible positions out of respect for the families of the deceased. Others have become known by the names other climbers have given them, landmarks used for navigation on a mountain where the GPS points are the bodies of the dead. The most well-known is David Sharp, a British climber who died in 2006 in a small cave beneath a rock outcrop called Green Boots Cave on the northeast ridge, where he had sought shelter from the cold. Green Boots Cave takes its name from an unidentified Indian climber who died in the same location in 1996, and whose body, still wearing bright green mountaineering boots, had become a navigation marker on the route. Sharp died in the cave while dozens of climbers passed him on their way to the summit and back. Some believed he was resting, some recognized that he was dying, but calculated that there was nothing they could do at that altitude without compromising their own survival. The ethics of that calculation have been debated ever since. The question of what a climber owes another climber on Everest has no clean answer. The mountain produces conditions in which ordinary moral obligations become physically impossible to fulfill. A person incapacitated above 8,000 meters cannot be carried down by a single individual and cannot be moved without specialized equipment that most climbers do not carry to the summit. The choice between attempting a rescue that is likely to kill both the rescuer and the person being rescued and continuing descent to survive is not a choice that can be judged from sea level. It is made by people whose brains are operating on a fraction of the oxygen they need, whose bodies are consuming themselves to stay warm, whose margin for error has already been reduced to almost nothing. And yet, rescues have happened. Beck Weathers, one of the survivors of the 1996 disaster, was left for dead twice on the mountain after being found unresponsive in the snow. He regained consciousness through a combination of factors that doctors later described as almost impossible to account for, and walked under his own power back to Camp 4. Where a helicopter evacuation at 4,940 meters, the highest helicopter rescue in history at that time, brought him down. He lost his nose, his right hand, and the fingers of his left hand to frostbite. He survived. He wrote a book. He continued to practice medicine. He considers himself fortunate. Lincoln Hall, an Australian climber, was found alive on the northeast ridge in 2006 after being left for dead the previous night by Sherpa guides who had been unable to move him and had reported his death to base camp. When a team of climbers encountered him the following morning, he was sitting upright without oxygen, apparently lucid, and greeted them with the words, "I imagine you're surprised to see me here." A rescue team was assembled, and he was brought down over the course of a day by 11 Sherpa climbers. He survived with severe frostbite but no permanent cognitive damage. He died of cancer 6 years later. Everest has a north side and a south side, and both have their histories and their dead. The north side, accessed from Tibet, was the route of the early British expeditions and the route on which Mallory and Irvine disappeared. It is higher at its upper reaches, more exposed to wind, and technically more demanding in its final sections than the standard South Col route from Nepal. The north side has its own death zone landmarks, its own collection of bodies, its own particular combination of cold and altitude and exposure that has shaped its casualty list over a century of attempts. The northeast ridge route that passes through the area where Green Boots Cave is located requires climbers to navigate a series of technical steps in the rock near the summit. The most notorious of which is the second step, a near vertical section of rock at 8,610 meters that Chinese climbers fixed an aluminum ladder on in 1975. And that has remained in place ever since, used by the majority of Northside climbers, without whom many would not be able to pass. The ladder on the second step is one of the more surreal details of Everest, a piece of hardware manufactured in a factory somewhere, carried up to an altitude of 8,610 meters. Bolted to a cliff face at a location where the atmosphere contains a third of the oxygen present at sea level, and used by thousands of climbers over half a century. It is replaced periodically when it deteriorates. The replacement requires someone to carry a new ladder to 8,610 meters. The Sherpa people who make Everest climbing possible live in the villages of the Khumbu Valley below the mountain: Namche Bazar, Kumjung, Teme, Pangbochi. These are communities where the relationship with the mountain is not aspirational, but ancestral. The mountain has a name in the Sherpa language, Chomolungma, Mother Goddess of the World. And the relationship it implies is not one of conquest, but of negotiation. Before an expedition departs base camp, a puja ceremony is conducted by a Buddhist Lama, offerings made to the mountain, prayers offered for safe passage, the expedition's equipment blessed, and the climber's intentions presented to the mountain as a request rather than a declaration. The Sherpa women who wait in the villages below, while their husbands, brothers, and sons work the mountain through each season, experience Everest as a different kind of place entirely. For them, it is not a challenge or an achievement. It is a workplace that kills people they love. The compensation paid to the families of Sherpa workers killed on the mountain has increased in recent years, following negotiations after the 2014 Icefall disaster. But no amount of compensation addresses the specific grief of losing someone to a mountain that continues to receive the same visitors the following season, who sleep in the same camps and eat the same food, and hire the same Sherpa families to replace the men who did not come home the year before. The mountain is also changing. Everest's glaciers are retreating. The Khumbu Glacier, which forms the Khumbu Icefall that climbers must cross multiple times each season, has thinned significantly over the past decades, and researchers' project continued decline. As the glacier thins and retreats, the icefall changes character, and the routes through it must be reassessed each season. The rocks exposed by glacial retreat on the upper mountain are in some cases unstable, having been locked in ice for thousands of years and now free to fall. Base camp, which sits on the glacier, is being relocated to a lower elevation in response to the instability and surface melting that have made its traditional location increasingly impractical. The garbage on Everest is another dimension of what 300 deaths and thousands of ascents have produced. Decades of expedition waste, abandoned equipment, empty oxygen cylinders, tent remnants, fixed rope sections, and human waste deposited at high altitude where the cold and low oxygen inhibit decomposition have accumulated on the mountain in quantities that cleanup expeditions chip away at season by season without reaching the end of the problem. Nepal has implemented regulations requiring expeditions to bring down a minimum weight of waste and to deposit bonds that are returned only upon verified cleanup compliance. The progress is real and the problem persists. The weather on Everest operates on its own schedule and respects no human plan. The summit window, the period of relatively stable weather that allows summit attempts, typically opens for a few weeks in May before the monsoon arrives from the south and closes the mountain under heavy snowfall and high winds. Most ascents happen within this window, which means most expeditions attempt the summit within the same few days of favorable weather, producing the cues that have become one of the defining images of modern Everest climbing. The jet stream that normally sits above the mountain drops during winter to speeds that make survival on the upper mountain impossible for anyone without shelter. Wind speeds at the summit have been recorded above 280 kilometers per hour, roughly 175 miles per hour. At those speeds and temperatures that can reach minus 60 degrees Celsius on the upper mountain, exposed skin freezes in seconds, and a person caught in the open without shelter will not survive the hour. The mountain in winter is not inhospitable. It is simply incompatible with human life, and yet the mountain has been climbed in winter. Krzysztof Wielicki and Leszek Cici made the first winter ascent in February 1980, reaching the summit in conditions that most summer climbers would not survive. It was not repeated until 2021, when a team of 10 Nepali climbers became the first to summit Everest in winter without supplemental oxygen in a team ascent that arrived at the summit together. A deliberate decision to share the achievement equally, rather than have a single person reach the top first. The summit itself is a small area of snow and rock at 8,849 meters, where the curvature of the Earth is visible at the horizon, and where the sky above is a deeper blue than anywhere else a person can stand on this planet without being in an aircraft. Climbers who reach it describe the view in terms that consistently emphasize not triumph, but reduction. The world below is so far away that the distinction between success and failure, between life and ambition, between everything that drove them to this point and the actual fact of standing here, collapses into something simpler: cold, thin air. the knowledge that they must now descend everything they just climbed. The summit is not the end, it is the halfway point. More people die on Everest on the descent than on the ascent, because the summit is reached at the moment when physical reserves are most depleted, when judgment is most compromised, and when the body has the least remaining capacity to manage whatever the mountain presents next. The 300 people who did not descend came from dozens of countries. They were climbers and guides, paying clients and high-altitude workers, experienced mountaineers, and people on their first attempt at a peak above 8,000 meters. They died from falls, from avalanches, from exposure, from altitude sickness, from exhaustion, from the compounding of small mistakes into situations that had no exit. They died in storms and in clear weather. They died within sight of camp and miles from any shelter. Some of them knew they were dying and had time to speak to the people they loved. Some did not know at all. The mountain holds all of them equally, without distinction or preference, as it holds everything else on its slopes, with complete indifference and perfect preservation. What draws people to Everest despite all of this is a question that has been asked and answered thousands of times without producing a satisfying single answer. The answers given include the challenge, the achievement, the view, the proof of something to oneself, the desire to stand where so few have stood, the appeal of a difficulty so extreme that surviving it resolves something that ordinary life cannot. George Mallory's answer, because it is there, delivered to a reporter in 1923, has become the most famous answer to any question in mountaineering history, quoted so frequently that its meaning has been worn smooth. But the answer beneath the answer, the one that Mallory's letters and journals suggest he was actually circling without quite stating, is that the mountain represented the outermost edge of what a human being could attempt, and that standing at that edge, regardless of what it cost, was the only way to know what you actually were. "300 people have paid with their lives for that knowledge. The mountain still stands at 8,849 meters. The death zone begins at 8,000 meters. The summit window opens in May. The ropes are fixed by Sherpa climbers every season before the first client arrives at base camp. And somewhere on the upper slopes, in positions that have not changed since the days or years or decades when they were left. The people who did not come down are still there, exactly where the mountain decided to keep them. Everest does not ask whether you were ready. It does not offer warnings or second chances. It simply exists at the altitude where human physiology reaches its absolute limit, and it waits to see what you were made of. For 300 people, the answer was not enough. For the thousands who have stood on its summit and returned, the answer was sufficient, barely, and only just. The margin between those two outcomes is smaller than most people who have never been there can imagine. And it is that margin, that razor's edge between survival and the alternative, that the mountain has been measuring for a century. It will keep measuring for as long as people keep coming, and people will keep coming, because it is there, And because what it reveals about the limits of human endurance is something that cannot be learned any other way. You have stood at the summit of the world's most deadly mountain and looked down at everything below. Now, travel to a range where the mountains go on forever and the wilderness has no end. Click now to explore the Himalayas, the last untouched wilderness on Earth, and discover what lies beyond the peak that everyone knows and almost no one survives.